I still remember the way dawn sliced through the cracked windows of the Fiat plant, dust swirling in the pale light while we punched out for the last time. The machines were stilled, conveyor belts limp and idle, as if the whole place had been drained of purpose in a single night. I stood there next to Diego, greasy overalls hanging from my shoulders, feeling the shape of my future dwindle into uncertainty. There was a metallic tang to the morning air, tinged with the scent of spent oil and burnt rubber. "You'll see," Diego muttered, forcing a crooked grin. "They'll call us back in a month, always do, Chi." But I knew better. The supervisors had cleared out their desks. The union man, eyes so red and swollen he could hardly speak, gave us a severance envelope each and a handshake that trembled with apology. There'd be no work, not this month, not any month soon. I pressed the envelope inside my chest pocket, felt its crispness against my sweat-soaked shirt, and started the walk home with the early buses. Looking out the window at the edge of Constitucion, Buenos Aires appeared mute and drained. Graffiti half lost beneath city grime, the steel of train tracks wet with dew. The men on the bus all wore the same defeated look, collars open, eyes glassy. Only the city dogs looked alive, weaving between the trash, their dark eyes bright with hunger and cunning. I remembered then that I needed milk for Mama, and I gripped the envelope tighter, feeling the sharp truth of its limits, just enough to keep us above water another month, maybe two if I rationed. I arrived home to find her already awake, hands shaking as she poured mate into chipped mugs. "Tea echaran," she didn't ask for confirmation, the answer hung between us heavy and certain. I nodded, unable to give voice to the shame balled in my chest. With that she retreated to her chair by the window, sighing into the threads of her blanket. "We'll manage, Hijo," she whispered. She didn't look at me. I wanted to believe her. It was during those weeks that the dream, the old ridiculous idea, started whispering louder. My plans for the little robot that could scale metal beams and inspect welds, more carefully, more safely than a man on a ladder with a flashlight. I'd drawn the sketches in fevered fits during high school, tinkered with servos dug from dumpstered appliances at the recycling warehouse. Back then, my cousin Franco had howled with laughter when he found a bird-like prototype hopping brokenly across our dirty linoleum. "Como un galina chi, hell of an engineer." The story spread through the block within hours. None of them ever understood that my fascination with gears and wires was a different kind of hunger. Where the others found dignity wielding a wrench on the assembly line or driving aching trucks through the city's spine, I saw patterns, problems begging for solutions. Underneath every machine was language. To me, every relay and switch hummed with possibility. Unemployment was ugly and loud in our barrio. The factory men swarmed the union hall every Tuesday, inventing rumors that soothed no one. Mama began wearing 2 sweaters to bed because I stopped topping up the gas meter. Still, in the cracks of the night while she slept, I dragged out my battered breadboard and salvaged motors, dabbing solder with trembling hands, tracking pages of a manual borrowed from the library. If Mama caught me at the kitchen table, she would peer over her thick glasses, shake her head, and mutter to herself in half-prayer. Franco would visit sometimes, always grinning, always loud. "Working on your little bugs again, Pipe." He'd set his beer on a completed circuit, not once, never apologizing, nudging at my patience. "You gonna build a robot to fix our problems, eh? Maybe one to cook empanadas for the whole block." His laughter filled up the narrow room, and Mama would smack his shoulder even as she cracked a weary smile. The job center visits grew shorter, my name already familiar to the tired girl behind the desk. "Nada todavia Tamars," she'd say, lips curling faintly. "Why not do another mechanics course? They're opening a car wash on Rivadavia." The idea made my stomach sour, but desperation gnawed at my resolve. Still, I clung to the blueprints, fixing and refixing, scraping for parts in the market on Wednesdays, enduring the vendor's snickers when I asked after precision resistors instead of potatoes. One night, Mama discovered the list of parts I had priced in the margins of a newspaper. She cornered me by the stack of old electronics. "Paraquay served to do esto to Mars," she gestured, frustration simmering. "We need food, not toys." I tried to explain how the robot could crawl into spaces too tight or dangerous, inspect welds, maybe even save someone's life. She shook her head. "People need jobs." "You want to make jobs for machines instead?" Her disappointment sat between us, thick as the August air. The worst was the birthday party that year. Franco gathered everyone in his back patio just as dusk settled over the rooftops. Beer, laughter, someone's cousin setting off cheap firecrackers in the alley. I heard my name from across the plastic table, saw Franco in the center, already half drunk. He raised his glass. To Tamars, he bellowed, the only man I know who thinks a washing machine can take over the world. The table erupted. Careful, Chi, someone called. Maybe next year he'll build a robot to sweep the streets. They meant no harm, not really. I forced a hollow smile, but I felt my own voice sink somewhere deep unsaid. A week later, with nothing left to lose, I brought my prototype, a battered box on wheels no larger than a shoebox, down to the repair shop where I'd sometimes earned a few pesos fixing radios. The owner, Don Julio, was hunched over a broken compressor, grumbling. "Ay, Tamars, what is this?" I unspooled the wire, placed the machine on the floor, and showed him the camera feed on my cracked phone. The little bot nosed neatly beneath the counter, ignored grease and trash, snapped a clear image of the corroded pipe at the back wall. He watched, lips pursed. "So, it's a toy," but he agreed to let me leave it for a few days. When I returned, he handed me a note, saw the leak, fixed it clean, saved hours. It was barely praise, but it was more than I'd ever received. I left with heart-pounding ideas tumbling over each other. My nights became longer, days a half-blurred rotation of odd jobs and shop visits. The community still viewed me as the neighborhood's oddity, the cracked inventor, but here and there, someone would ask quietly if I could fix a security camera or automate their front gate. Each small failure, an overheated capacitor, a motor that refused to start, taught me more. Persistence pressed out of grief. The real chance came by accident. One of Don Julio's customers, an engineer at a tiny robotics startup in Palermo, had seen my bot in action. She left her card, Estefania Martinez, Argobots SA. It took all evening to gather the nerve to email her, using broken English from tutorials and borrowed Wi-Fi at the cafe. I sent her a shaky video, a list of parts. She replied the same night, "Can you come tomorrow?" Her office was nothing like the luminous labs I'd seen on YouTube. It was a cramped storefront off Avenida Santa Fe, the floor littered with tangled cables, schematics scrawled onto every flat surface. But for the first time, my questions were met with curiosity rather than ridicule. Estefania asked me to walk her through my code. I did, fingers stumbling across the keyboard. She nodded, taking notes, silent but attentive. "You've got skill," she said finally. "Formal training?" I shook my head, embarrassed. For a moment she watched me weighing something. "Doesn't matter, do you want to work?" I nearly said yes before remembering Mama and the apartment, the weight of obligation. But she added quickly, "We pay cash, we eat lunch here." The following months blurred into a new rhythm. Soldering by morning, programming by afternoon, wolfing grimy empanadas with the tiny team, while Estefania explained every decision with firm edits. The hours were brutal, mistakes frequent. Sometimes sweaty panic caught me by the throat as I cobbled together last-minute updates on a project bound for a pitch meeting. But one evening she thrusted a contract under my nose, a real stamped paper contract, all my ugly spelling errors corrected, my name printed in bold black. "Sign it, Tamars. You're part of this now." I raced home, waking Mama to wave my first paycheck beneath her nose. She ran her fingers over the ink, disbelief tipping her head back, eyes shining, as if she'd glimpsed color after endless rain. "You did it," she whispered it once almost to herself, but her skepticism hovered. "You'll see," she cautioned, "things come and go, even good fortune." Argobots expanded quickly. My industrial inspection bot, smaller, tougher, smarter, became a core part of our portfolio. My days filled with design, client meetings, presentations that left my stomach racing like a cheap moped. Sometimes I stilled, conscious that I didn't belong among the engineers with formal degrees, foreign certs, or families who traveled abroad. But the success was real, incremental, and steady as growth in spring. I dressed a little better, sent Mama a steady transfer each week, pressed her to fill the fridge without worry. Years passed. Mama's hair turned grey, her hands frailer, but her smile grew warmer, prouder, especially when neighbors mentioned my company's robots on the news. Local startup signs major deal. Franco still joked, though less loudly now, about his genius cousin. The laughter had softened. Then last year the call came. A new factory, gleaming and modern, all chrome and windows, had opened on the city's outskirts. They wanted a full robotic inspection system to boost efficiency and safety. I recognized the client. The refurbished Fiat plant reopened under new investment, its workforce changed but its bones the same. The presentation would be made to the new management, but local contractors had been invited. Estefania insisted I laid. "It's time," she said, eyes sharp but kind. "I didn't sleep the night before." My heart ached with something sour and sweet, a memory of shame twining with anticipation. The day was stormy, rain smudging the city's edges black as I crossed to the old barrio. When I arrived at the gates, clustered under the entry awning were men I recognized. Diego, Franco, the old Union crowd, now grey at the temples and softened by time, still leaning on jokes to weather the lean days. I caught Franco's stare, his eyes narrowing first with surprise, then confusion. To Mars. "You here for a job too?" Someone chuckled, another muttered, "Maybe he's fixing vending machines, chi." But I nodded, straightening my suit jacket, not expensive but neat, worn with a confidence I'd fought years to build. Inside, the plant's transformation was staggering, polished, humming with data screens, floors bright under LED strips. The echoes of my past boots stomping through puddles were gone, replaced with the low whir of automation and the steady beeps of robotic arms. My presentation materials weighed heavy in my hands, sleek slides, technical diagrams, samples of the robot's components packed in foam. The group gathered in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the new floor. Factory management, engineers, and unexpectedly, a group of community observers including Franco pressed inside. I caught Mama's eyes at the back. She'd come, finally, in her navy coat and best shoes. Her lips trembled with effort, but she stood straight, chin high, defiant as only an Argentine mother can be in the face of the world's doubts. I stepped forward, my words clear and measured. I demonstrated the bot, sleek now snake-like with a shining camera eye crawling along girder seams, scanning for weakness, sending video to every monitor in the room. On screen, the factory's new manager watched as the bot found a microscopic crack in a weld, alerting the line before any person had noticed. The numbers flashed up: reduced downtime, improved worker safety, dramatic savings. There was no laughter, only silence, thick and tense. I could feel the eyes of my community on me, not mocking now but stunned, translating the memory of my endless tinkering, my useless hours at the kitchen table, into this moment of transformation. When the manager approved the contract, the applause was genuine, swelling and awkward, but it was Franco who said it loudest. "Mara vos," he muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. "He built it. He bloody built it." After the meeting, Franco lingered, hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Listen," he mumbled, voice thick with something I hadn't heard before, pride perhaps, or regret. "Was wrong to laugh, cousin. You always saw things coming we didn't." I shrugged, the old hurt still there but gentled at the edges. "Wasn't wrong to laugh, everybody needs hope ever since the layoffs." I gripped his shoulder. "But maybe you come by the office sometime. Show you the rest of the work." We walked out together, the afternoon breaking through the clouds, painting silver across the battered concrete. Mama took my arm, holding fast, her eyes glistening. "They see you now, Mijo," she whispered. "They see what I always hoped you'd be." She smiled, wide and aching. "You came back not to show off but to help. That's worth more than any paycheck." I gazed at the factory behind us, the same structure, changed beyond what I'd ever dared to imagine. Outside, the shift workers trudged in, some glancing curiously at the robot cradled in my hands. I held my head high, not to impress or to gloat, but with quiet gratitude. The path back was not an escape from grief or struggle, but a bridge, one built by persistence and hope, soldered together by the certainty that even those deemed ridiculous might one day return home, their worth made clear in steel and circuit, and the simple fact of having never, ever given up.